Hello, everyone. It's Lindsay Landry, and welcome to today's Rise Together conversation. I am here with a dear friend and soul sister, Heather, and today we are going to be talking all about the new process of relationships. So, if you're ready to uplevel your relationships, or bring some healing to your relationships, this conversation is specifically for you. So welcome, Heather. Thanks for being
Thank
here
you
with me
so
today.
much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yes, I would love to. So, my business is Acadiana Energy Healing, and I deal very similarly to what Lindsay does, a lot of inner guided work to shift your experience. and Currently, I'm actually going to be running a class called Sacred Sexuality for Women to teach a lot of the concepts that probably we're going to be talking about today. And but yeah, yeah, you can find me anywhere with Acadiana Energy Healing.
Yes. So good. I've been knowing Heather for probably close to what, 5, 6 years, maybe longer than that.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
So, where do you want to begin?
Actually, I think I just want to dive in by explaining that this year, 2020, is a huge year for existentialism as far as the up leveling of those who are awakened. And there's a lot of balancing that's happening between the masculine and feminine energies, which sounds really lovely when you hear it, like, oh, balancing of masculine and feminine. Except that what it means is that all of the distortion that's
Mm.
causing it to not be balanced is going to come up to be experienced.
Mhm.
Uh, so there's been what I've been referring to as an earthquake of sorts happening between the masculines and feminines on this planet.
Yeah.
And it can be positive, but it can also be very disconcerting, you know.
Yeah, and it feels important, as we're diving into this conversation, what's coming forward to me is, when we speak of relationships, it can be a relationship between a partner, partners. It can be friendships. It can be your relationship with your business. It can be your relationship to money,
Oh,
your, your relationship to yourself. And so this isn't necessarily um, just about relationships of being in a partnership. It can be that, and it can also be these other things. And if you're here with us, you may notice where maybe your relationship with your business has been changing, or you've been noticing the patterns coming forward um, in your relationship with your partner, and possibly even just through life's disruptions, because our patterns have really been interrupted and disrupted this past year. Um, you may notice it's caused some turbulence in your relationship as well.
it's so true. I mean, we always say that whatever we're putting our energy focused upon is going to be a reflection of what our internal energetic state is. And, I've seen lots of people, definitely in this last year, say certain things about their romantic relationship and then turn towards their business and kind of blame their romantic relationship for having taken their energy away from their business, or something to that degree. And I'm just sitting there observing, going, there's something more to that. Because as we are learning, as we are upgrading, there is a new process that we are learning, that we are in, as humanity, we're learning how to shift into the way of the divine feminine energy. And, that divine feminine energy is so dynamic, so vast, so broad. If you look at the different feminine archetypes for our leaders, I guess you could say, different cultures' leaders, right? So you could look at Mother Mary or Kuan Yin, you could look at Isis or Kali, or, there's so many of them. And what you can see is such variance. There's so much variation because they all embody a particular extraordinary energy, right? And I feel like some people have a particular idea of what they think the divine feminine is, and then they'll say, "Oh, well, that's what divine feminine energy is," but it really is so much.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm more and more present to is that the distortions on our system that show up in our fears, in our retractions, in our blocks, in our relationships, in our business, in our,
Story.
family, all of those stories, is actually the the old crunchy energy that's not allowing us to break through into this feminine flow.
Mm-hmm.
And all sorts of defenses come up. It's almost like you have to really tread lightly when engaging with someone because it can trigger so easily. A feminine who has lots of wounding could easily become an activist, for example, and they're in that fight energy, and it's like,
I want to speak to that for a moment because I feel like, some of the energy that we're moving into, there is like this desire. I think Morris has been an Aries. So there's been like this desire to like speak up, to claim, our space, to um, embody more of what we want or what we need. And to me, like, so this distortion that you are speaking of, and I've been noticing layers of it for myself, right? We're totally human here. um there's a way that it's like we start to feel these these little threads of this power of sorts, right? Like the desire or the longing, and then we might take action on it, but if our system isn't fully like aligned to it, it can be a little wonky.
yes. Yeah. And, it's not something that we should overly judge ourselves for. I feel like we should give ourselves lots of grace in this learning process and give others lots of grace too, because this is happening. I mean, for those of us who are, probably in the circle that, you operate mostly in, is the feminine entrepreneur space. It's, a lot of that crunchiness is being worked out right here in this very, pool of female entrepreneurs, because different people are hitting up against their own particular woundings and having to process that. And as people who do, or if they're entrepreneurs, they're going to be speaking their truth at the moment. And our wounding is our truth at the moment sometimes, you know? And it's also mindful to, it's wonderful if we could sit from a place of love and see them in their wounding and say, I love you,
For sure. And
Yeah.
this just came to me. I don't know if you feel like this is true, but I've really noticed this throughout this year, just kind of like being in the observer mode of like what's happening is, um, one of the things that I like to say is when we don't understand our superpower, like if we don't understand the way that energy runs through us, and
Mhm.
um, if we don't understand the fullness of our gift, that's whenever it becomes a little shadowy, or we're running the energy in an unconscious way. And so like is some tangible examples of that, like you're mentioning um, the protest, right? Or people wanting to use their voice. And so there's a way, it's like we can begin to feel these threads, or we feel called to this thing, but then it's kind of watered down because the energy that you're running isn't really the depth of being connected to like your full self or your soul self, and it's coming more from like these surfacey currents of the energy, or the distorted energy, right? That's like in the energetic field versus like
Yeah.
coming through,
And
which
actually,
shows up in our,
mm,
you know, it can show up in our business, right, where we're speaking something, but it can show up in our relationships as well, you know, where, and I notice this in my relationship a lot, right, where um sometimes I do it, but also sometimes James does it. So it's like according to what is happening astrologically, right, or like what's happening in these collective currents, like projections might come forward, or patterning might come forward. And so yeah, to me this is where the work is really important.
it is crucially important, because if we avoid, it's only going to take longer. But it's so true that, when we're acting out of a place of wounding, and even standing for a cause, even in our relationship, being a cause that we feel is important for our experience in this relationship, and they're standing for a cause that they feel is important. Whatever we're doing, the entire energetic is that we are disconnected from our true divinity, and that feeling of our fullness of power is what sends us into an upsetted space.
Mm,
And, the way that the divine feminine operates, I mean, it's not to say anything negative about standing for your position, or, you know, protesting, or, being an activist for something, being a stand for something. It's just that your efforts, though they may seem large, like the largest thing you could do in the moment, standing up to your significant other and, claiming what you need, right? It, or standing up to, in a protest, holding signs, it seems like a very large energetic, something that you could do. But actually the largest impact that you can have is to spend that particular amount of time connecting with yourself and tending the fears that come up between you and being in your fullness.
mm,
Because the feminine, whenever you have access to it, it's literally like you can see things from a completely different perspective. When you're thinking out of your logical mind, this is where all of your defenses can come in, all of your protections come up, because it's logical to have some of these fears. But the thing is that the mind is the masculine energy.
mm,
And when we can learn how to be in the feminine, because we're not taught in our society how to do that. Even the women are taught to be in their masculine energy,
mm,
in the mind, in the action. But when we can access that energy, we see how these boundaries and these demanding what we need, and proclaiming what we won't tolerate or we will tolerate or whatever, isn't actually even necessary. We can start dissolving that crunchy energy around ourselves. We feel so much better from the inside. And when we're putting out any sort of communication, it actually can be heard and seen. Because when we come out of our crunchy and we're demanding, it puts the other person or the other party or the other whatever in a defense mode, and now you're dealing with protection mechanism against protection mechanism, and then it's who's ever is stronger. It's like a ram, two rams like fighting it out, and this is not productive energy. It's not loving either. And with the feminine being called to soften and drop our protection mechanisms, I never ever ask, or suggest that a client drop their protection mechanisms before we create a very solid sense of safety that's better at protecting them than their protection mechanisms that they're currently running. That's just unwise and unsafe. But there are much better protection mechanisms than the ones that our woundings have put up.
So if someone is experiencing a pattern in their relationship, so again, this can be any relationship. So maybe it's with their significant other, or maybe it's in their business. They get a bunch of discovery calls, and then somebody wants to do the thing, and then they end up telling them like, oh no, I changed my mind, or just use that as a story, right?
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, common, a good common one.
Yeah. And so I just get curious, like, okay, what would be the first place for somebody to start just to begin to maybe come back into this divine feminine flow, and also like reclaiming their sovereignty?
So what I would say, just to identify that pattern energetically, predominantly, maybe this doesn't apply to every single person, but generally speaking. So the way that the feminine, like the divine feminine operating in an open space consistently would do it, would be to feel that resonant energy with the client and stay open through the whole process and know what you desire. So like attracts like. So basically, if you are in an energy where you can like open up and the client's like, oh my God, yes, I want that, and then you're like, okay, I did the thing, and you close up, boom, automatically the energy is going to disconnect. It happens subconsciously. Or the other way could be if you're in a place where you're like, oh, I truly, truly desire this client to purchase from me because I need the money.
Right.
Right? This is a whole distortion of energetics altogether. It's a distortion on money. It's a distortion on your sovereignty and your worth. So these are all questions that come up in the entrepreneurial space of like, oh, know your worth. Nah, this it's not knowing your worth. This is not how it works. It doesn't work like that. When you're in your feminine energy, you feel your worth, you're solid in your worth, and it's easy. Like it flows. But when you have the disconnections or the fears or the distortions, the woundings, whatever, that sends up the protection mechanisms, that's what's putting it in place. If you have a pattern where somebody is like, oh yeah, there's something that connected, and then there's something that disconnected. And we've all, everybody I know that runs a business has had that.
Totally.
And so that means that we are working through our own energetics to stay open and to stay in our sovereignty. So I think the main part of your question was how to do that. So yeah, I would say that, on the surface, if you're like starting out, working through your fears, reframing your concept with money, because as an entrepreneur and as a partner in a very long-term committed relationship, you're gonna have issues that come up about money, and there's a lot, but when it comes to something like that, because I know that's where a lot of people are curious about, the idea is to connect your system to the earth, connect your system to spirit, and that way you're no longer perceiving that money comes from other people. That's what I've done, is I've reframed it to where money is about me and my connection in my body. I
Mm.
receive it as per me and my energy work. I don't look at my consultation calls as potential dollar signs. I don't look at people and their heart as potential dollar signs any longer. And it's taken a little bit of a while to reframe that, but it's so much freaking easier when you're doing a consultation call to not be attached to whether they buy something or not. And even if somebody's like, oh, okay, I'm going to buy from you, I'm like, whatever, like I don't attach to it. I mean, I think even as recent as last year, I probably still was, in some ways still like, oh, they said they were going to buy. Now I'm like, I mean, if they buy, I'll know that they've purchased when I see the money come through. Like but it's not about money between me and the person. It's about money between me and my spirit. I mean, and spirit, what my energy is open for
Mm.
and regularly tending it. But it does come up in business and relationships. So you have to look at the pattern and see what your energy is doing. As long as you keep taking it back to you, you keep taking your sovereignty back. As long as you keep doing the practices to drop in to yourself and really look at those fears that are coming up, really look at the places where you feel like you're putting up a protection, because you can feel like like the tenseness or the crunchiness or the desire to say something harsh or like put up a boundary in some sort of way. Boundaries is one of my things. I've been working on healing for so long. And there's layers, there's a process to all of this. And what I have learned is that if I have to strongly articulate a boundary, I don't have one. That's just that. I
Right.
might mentally think that this is where I want my boundary to be, but energetically, that's not where it is. And literally, even just a matter of months ago, I had the awareness that the reason why my boundaries aren't being honored wasn't because I didn't want the boundary there, not even because I didn't kind of have an outline energetically of the boundary there. It was that another part of my system was contradicting the majority, or my conscious mind, saying, here's a boundary. There's this other part of me that's like, actually, there's a reason that I don't want that there, you know? And so the energy work is always inside of ourselves.
Mm.
It's between us and us. We just look at other interactions as reflection.
Totally. And yeah, so it's like as we're deepening our relationship with ourself and as we're working through the patterns or the protections with our relationship to ourself, our divinity, our source, then our outside world begins to loosen and soften and hopefully shift.
Oh, oh my God, so much ease, so much ease. I can't, and it's what we desire, right? We crave it. We mourn the fact that it's not here. It's like, I just want ease. I just want this to be easy. And every time we say that means that we are not connected to our feminine flow. And, then our mind starts to think like, oh, well, how do we do that? And that's disconnecting you right there. Like the feminine is a feeling. It's you have to put the mind aside and drop into the heart first and let it warm the rest of the system up.
I've been having a lot of calls with people about the way of the dark goddess, as I'm writing this book. And it's interesting, to hear people's journey with their own shadow work and turning towards their heart and turning towards, the scary boogeyman
Yeah.
emotions that they thought might kill them, or destroy them. And, what a lot of people have said is they were terrified. They were terrified of turning towards those places. And once they did, they realized the beauty, the beauty of and the sacredness of our feelings, even, even our patterns and our protections. Like I truly believe they hold so much wisdom,
Oh yeah.
and they have so much to teach us and to offer us. And
Mm.
I know for me, like turning towards some of my patterns, it actually showed me like how I'm in relationship not only with myself but also with other people, and when I learning to create space for my own pattern and protection, right? It taught me how to hold space for my clients in a new way, or hold space for my boyfriend in a new way, to where, when he would come home from work, frustrated and angry, and like, if I couldn't be with my own anger and I couldn't be with that fiery energy, then there was no way that I could hold space for him, right? And so then it would create an explosion of energy. Or we'd end up in these, like, we wouldn't even know where we were, right? We start like, ah, and then it's like, what just happened? I don't even know what happened.
And this honestly is the reason why I love doing couples coaching, I guess you could call it, is because, generally the concept of couples counseling is, you know, generally the guys don't like it, and I totally understand that. I understand their reasoning. But the way that I do it is to show each person the way that their energy is flowing and how the two are not meeting up. It doesn't have anything to do with the circumstances of the situation. I'm not siding with anybody. I'm just showing them the way that the energy is not matching up. And to see the epiphanies come across their face when they see they have complete control and they actually do love each other. They don't want this particular friction. But when somebody's like just pointing out, like, oh, you see, when you do this, it rubs this person the wrong way, they explode, and you're not getting what you need. They're
Right.
not getting what they need. It's not matching up. And they're like, oh my God, and the results are just so amazing when you can get the energy lined up. And that's our job to do inside of our own system. It doesn't matter if your significant other won't come to an, an energy couple session. It doesn't matter. You can shift that exact dynamic between you and your partner, you and your business, you and your kid. I've had that happen before, where you go inside of yourself and you find that disconnect and you just reconnect the energy and redo the pattern and heal your own pieces around it. It starts resolving in our external world, whether it's our relationship, our business, our family, our friends, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. This whole new way of operating in the feminine, it feels scary and dangerous. One of the reasons is that
Ugh,
our
sorry, that was
society,
a spider.
ooh, that's very good energy. Yes, hello.
We're weaving.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, we've actually been trained to be scared of the feminine in her power because the feminine has so much power that it was widely known in ancient times that the feminines were, sought out to do particular practices and for their wisdom, and they were honored for the way that they ran the energy in their system. Everybody, I mean, most everybody in the ancient world knew the power of the feminine.
Mhm.
And that's why it was so starkly cut, and how it started being demonized. And anybody that would do anything related to that was just bad, wrong, awful. And this has been happening for between 1500 and 3000 years on this planet, depending on what part of the world you're talking about. And to have that level of an ingrained evilness or wrongness about simply closing your eyes, connecting, getting information, and really dropping into your heart, you can change the world. You assuredly can change your own world,
Mm-hmm.
but you can have ease and access. But the thing about it is that we are trained in the masculine. And so all of these protection mechanisms come up to prevent us from operating in our feminine energy. So there is a lot of tending that needs to happen. But the more you get into your feminine and the more you drop in and allow that energy to just flow through and learn from it, learn to connect to yourself, literally you can change your entire world and the entire world. And when it comes to the concept that, irks the crap out of me is how women will will be the first to fight other women. They'll be the first to contradict or argue or whatever. And it's very true. And it's because of this distortion and breakdown that happened all those many centuries ago. But when you drop into the heart, you see how everything is connected and that you actually do want the same things, and your energy is supporting the exact same things the others are supporting, even though you seem to have completely opposite positions. It's like all of this separation and fight energy just starts to dissolve and harmonize. And this is the work that we are being called to do, is to step into that space. And that is how we are shifting the entire earth plane. I'm so excited to be teaching it too. I'm like, yes, this is absolutely needed. Oh, wait, hang on. Are you saying something? I can't hear your audio.
Can you hear me? No? So weird.
Okay, I heard that, but very low.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Really interesting. Maybe let's just take a breath.
Well, we did do this right as Mercury was going direct.
For sure.
I suppose that is our cue, right? Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if those watching can hear or not. Um,
I can hear you. It's just really low.
really low.
Yeah.
So strange. Um,
Hmm. Maybe if we ground a little bit, maybe my
let's
mystic energy kind of got the kind of got all of the technology moving in a different direction. Mm. Mm. Say something again.
can you hear me now?
Same. Oh, well.
Yeah, the invitation to go inward.
It definitely is. Yeah,
That's it, right? When the world reflects to us something kind of wonky, it's an invitation to
exactly.
pause, to turn,
It's so true.
get really present to what is.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this message today, I guess.
Yes.
Mm.
So, are there any last pieces that you want to um, leave our listeners with?
I do actually. It's some words of encouragement
Mm.
to know that, it's been a long journey, especially, with the astrology sense. What was it? The beginning of 18, when so many entrepreneurs were, had this very inward experience and, had a lot of disconnect with business and, we're really reshaping and reframing. And so it's been a little bit of a long journey. And then now with, so that was Jupiter and Scorpio. Now that Jupiter's in Capricorn, there's actually more movement forward. There is a process. And getting into the feminine is a process. Um, and we should give ourselves grace all along the way. We do our best. We always do our best at all of the things. We do so well. And giving ourselves credit for that, and yeah, giving yourself the love and comfort that you truly desire is actually going to assist you probably the most
Hmm.
in getting into your feminine energy.
I love that.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me and having this conversation with me.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Um, and anyone who is listening, if you want to share what's moving through for you, you can come share in the Rise Together community. I'll put the link in the comments, and I'll also put Heather's information and the information about her class as well in the comments below. So definitely check that out.
Yay. And interestingly enough, your audio just came back at full strength.
Yay!
Yeah, it was divine timing.
For sure.
Good deal.
All right,
Mm,
love. Thanks again for being here with me, and we'll talk soon.
yes, definitely. Bye for now.